Hello, everybody. Welcome to Monday's supporters only live stream. Again, I apologize for my sewing gear being all over the place in the background here. It is Christmas time. So if you're watching this on the replay, that's what's going on. Sometimes I sew at Christmas, I make gifts. Um, so before we get started on today's topic, which is about how school choice is creeping into homeschooling and how you can protect yourself, I want to get a couple things clear about what I mean when I say homeschooling, like the definition of homeschooling. I think it's important because I'm noticing people still have a definition that doesn't exactly align with mine and with the one I'll be talking about in terms of vulnerability. If you think that what we did during COVID, when everybody was sent home and put onto virtual school, constituted homeschooling, that's incorrect. That's not homeschooling. That is virtual schooling. If you think that being at home and connected to K-12 online through your district is homeschooling, that is not homeschooling. That is virtual schooling, also through the school system. And there are a variety of different permutations of that. So, for example, even if you're working through something like Williamsburg Academy, like I used to be with my kids, or Well Trained Mind, unless the program itself is disconnected from your school district or any school district. In fact, it's one of the reasons I left Williamsburg with my kids is they got hooked into their local school districts, started taking on tax dollars to pay for public school kids to virtual school through their program, and thus their curriculum changed. Well Trained Mind changed of its own accord. Not sure whether they're taking ESA money, but I noticed they started changing curriculum. And while they still would count as homeschooling in my definition, because parents are still picking and choosing classes, and they don't have sort of an accredited program that you join all of it, and you can opt out of certain classes, but then you're kind of on your own and you won't get a diploma from them. um they still count in that way. Anytime you are doing education through a program that either is accredited and has graduation requirements that your kid has to take, and you can't opt out of them even though you chose the program, or is literally supported by your district and has kids in from your district in the classes, you're not homeschooling, you're virtual schooling. And I think that's a very important distinction to make. In fact, I would prefer if we change the term homeschooling to uh, parent directed education or parent selected education or some other kind of definition, because otherwise we're making homeschooling about the location and not about the choices that parents make around education. And that makes it easier for people in the school choice movement to say that this isn't going to hurt homeschooling. It's not going to affect homeschooling. You can still homeschool. You can still don't worry about any future regulations, or there aren't any now. And the future ones are only going to be this or that, either won't affect you. Well, won't it though? They're able to get away with saying that because they're situating homeschooling as a place, something your kid's going to do, not in a building owned by, literally owned by the state, through a private entity of some sort, a middleman, a public-private partnership, etc. And as long as you can decide where your kid sits when they're doing that, it's homeschooling by their definition. That's not what I'm talking about. When I say that school choice is creeping into homeschooling, I mean the kind where we parents decide, maybe on a day-to-day basis, but certainly probably semester after semester, if you want to go by semesters, year after year, that we want to sit down and make decisions about what our kids are going to learn, how many hours a day they're going to spend doing any kind of academic or school related activities, things that don't fall under the heading of playing without some sort of purpose. We want to make those decisions, even day to day. We want to be halfway through a curriculum and say, this is not working. We switch. We don't like it. We're not going to do it anymore. Done. Or, I know we've been doing science on Mondays and Wednesdays, but you're caught up, you're way ahead. We'd only need to do it one day a week. Or conversely, we need to speed things up a bit, or we're going to be doing biology for 2 years. And I'm pretty sure you wanted to move on to the next subject based on what we as a family have discussed you want to do with your education. So we're going to need to step it up to 4 days a week or whatever. You want to make those decisions. That's homeschooling. That's homeschooling. You want to decide not to take biology at all. Not interested, mom. Not going to do it. You know what I want to do? I want to grow up and be a welder. I want to grow up and work, in some other trade or other. I'm going to be a carpenter. So biology is like, basic bio, okay, but I'm really not interested in doing a bunch of labs and I don't want to do all this other stuff. And I'm not going to college and it's whatever. Don't want the big detailed AP biology class. You can decide as a family, okay, fine. You'll still graduate, whatever. That's homeschooling. It is not homeschooling when you're ticking off, when you say, well, my child is in 10th grade and boom, a bunch of classes appear like in Power School or Acellus. I can't tell you how many people I talked to and are like, oh, even kids, I interviewed somebody who said, I graduated early because of I homeschooled through Acellus. I'm like, you didn't homeschool. Yes, you went to school at home through the computer. You decided to go at your own pace. Fair enough. And you chose which classes you were going to take. But those classes through Acellus, while they're not all garbage, I'm not going to say that they are, because you signed up for the 10th grade curriculum or the 9th grade curriculum and the class that they had, you are much more in line with what's going on in your district. And when the district or when your state or all the states or the federal government makes a rule or regulation, it's going to appear in Acellus because they're accredited, their transcripts, whatever, are approved by the government and so on and so forth. So I wouldn't call that homeschooling. That's just virtual schooling at home. Again, not to diss on it. You might think that's certainly better than sending your high school kid into a sea of bullying and racism and all that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't disagree with you. But I want to be very clear that those things are already captured. They're already under the thumb of government. Whatever it is they're putting forth as biology or as English or as history already has the government's fingerprints all over it. Now, does that mean it's as bad as your local district, as influenced by DEI or woke ideas? Not necessarily. You would have to look at the individual syllabus and the teachers and so forth to decide for yourself. It could be less overt, but I can tell you that I went and checked about a month ago into Power School with Acellus, and already there's a box to tick that says highly recommended for SEL. Yes, for SEL to be included in your child's home-based online learning, and how many parents are not going to check the box? Included free. It's included with your fee, and it's a very inexpensive fee per month to do Acellus for an entire grade. You can do 5 classes for the same, like under $30. Very cheap option. You don't even need to take school choice money. Most people, somebody has a job. I think you can spring $25 a month for your kid to have all of school. But it's school. Let's be clear. It is school. It's a set it and forget it outsourcing of your parenting, just like school. It's just in your living room or the cafe or the library or wherever it is you're going. So what I'm about to say doesn't really apply to you if that's what you're doing, because you're already subject to the government's regulation. You're not at risk. It's happened. Okay. The people I'm speaking to with this video are those people who are doing all the parent choices, who are looking at school choice, the movement school choice, the initiative school choice, the legislation, either coming to their state or already having been adopted in their state. And, I want to talk to you about the risks to what you're doing now, your style of these programs and of taking the money from these programs. And it's a tough one because I have always said, you're not under obligation to be a martyr because there's a bad policy. So you might think, I've said in another video, if you can sign up and use the money or have an ESA or whatever without, and your kid is currently like late on in the process and the likelihood of them passing a regulation that's going to affect you is slim, I certainly can't tell you what to do. But if you have young children, still elementary school age children, or your kids are not homeschooled yet, or you're talking to, for example, your nieces or your sisters and brothers, and you have nieces and nephews or grandchildren or whatever, and you want to help them get started with homeschooling, or do you know somebody who's on the fence and they're about to have a baby, things like that. This very much applies to them and will apply to them for the duration of their child's, you know, life, or as far as a child education. Um, and that is that, you know, because the school choice movement defines homeschool as anything not happening inside of a state school building or an official private school, like accredited private school building, and they really consider anything else homeschooling, anything else. They're even into many, they'll say charter school is separate. Okay. But if it's a micro school, I've seen people call that homeschooling as opposed to micro schooling or private schooling. Um, and so you just have to be careful. The concern is that the money from school choice programs, I've said it before, coming from tax dollars, coming from the same pool of money that they redistribute to the schools and the private schools for that matter. They already redistribute money for IDEA funds to private schools that service kids who have special needs, which is parochial schools, for example. They don't not take special needs kids. The only schools, private schools that don't take special needs kids are those that explicitly say we don't have the capacity to do that and we don't take them, and then they probably don't get federal money. And the schools don't even get it directly in many cases. It goes to the district, but their students benefit. In other words, they can accept IDA students because they'll get sent out for services to the district. It still gets covered. The kid isn't missing out. And that's been going on for years. So title funds, just like the colleges, the private schools get it now. Micro schools don't, as a matter of course, but they will with school choice. And these online based programs where you could sign up for a class all the way through an entire year's curriculum, they will get these funds. They will be eligible if they play footsie with the government. In other words, that's already the case. There is not a school choice bill out there that says your program, if you're a vendor, can accept ESA funds no matter what you teach, no matter who teaches it, no matter how, what your criteria or standards are. There isn't one. That's already the case. So when you see any kind of online homeschool provider, homeschool vendor suddenly say ESA dollars welcome or ESA accepted or vouchers accepted, you can safely assume they have already done whatever is currently required of them in terms of accountability, in terms of record keeping, in terms of auditing, telling the government who's using their services, surveillance, testing, anything, whatever it is in your state, they're already doing it, or they wouldn't be allowed to accept those funds. And it means if, as a homeschooler, you decide I'm going to apply for and get the vouchers, the ESA funds, whatever, and take them to this vendor, you're looping yourself into that. You are pulling yourself right into that ecosystem, right back where you were before. And you might think, yeah, but it's better because it's not the same. Yet. But as we've seen with most government programs, they grow at a rapid clip. They grow in terms of their cost, and they drive up the cost of the services you're using. So your first risk, even before you're risking ideologically, you are risking that you're going to hook your child into a program or a kind of class or a system or a curriculum that you love, that they love, whatever, that is going to be more expensive next year and more expensive the year after that and more expensive the year after that, just like the colleges became when they federalized the student loans. They were going up anyway, but as soon as they did that, it was like, what we subsidize, what happens? The price goes up, it doesn't go down. It seems counterintuitive, but there it is. That is what will happen. That is what will happen. And it will happen for the simple reason that there's a cost to compliance. So that's going to cost the company more to comply. And each year there'll be new little rules, new things they have to get audited for, and they'll have to hire lawyers and accountants and all these things to keep them on the straight and narrow path. And You would think that would be incentive enough for them to go, "Yeah, I don't know that we want that money so badly." But when they see that better than 50% of their customer base are coming waving their vouchers in their face or their ESA money, they're going to be hard pressed to say no, aren't they? They'll lose half their customer base. That's why I'm speaking to the customer base, which is you, the parents. Not that I fool myself into thinking I have such a huge audience. I'm just saying, spread the word. Um, you guys are going to drive this as much as those dollars. So it's a tease. You know, they say there's a reason the cheese in the mousetrap is free, and it's the same here. And the people on the vendor end go, "Oh, yippee, we'll have all this money and we'll keep our customers." The customer side go, "Oh, yippee, we'll have all this free money." And next thing you know, they are both beholden to new standards. And you might have to turn and tell your kid some year, "I know you really love this program, but it's like 50% more expensive than when we started. And we just, even with the voucher, we can't afford it." Or maybe you have two or three kids. That's what happened to some parents with colleges and stuff. They had, the older kid went, they borrowed money, and it was like, "Okay, good, cool. And here's the tuition, and we'll pay for half your tuition, eldest child." Next eldest child comes up, and you're like, we'll pay for 2/3 of your tuition. You got to borrow the rest." The kid's like, "What?" Third kid comes up. "So yeah, we're gonna be able to maybe pay for 1/3 if we're lucky, if we take out a second mortgage on the house, because we're actually still trying to pay for the second child, but yeah, so we're kind of screwed." And third kid's going, "What?" There are families that I've seen that happen, like in the same family, not being able to afford multiple kids. So I think that's going to come into these homeschooling programs and vendors and so on. So think carefully before you take it. Will I be able to afford this moving forward if the cost goes up? Even do the math. 10%, 50%, 20%. What's the most it could go up year over year and you'd still afford it across all your children? Then you need to dig into who did they've got to be accredited. In most states, they're going if to take the money, they're going to have to be some kind of accredited, or they're going to have to submit somebody to the government. Look into your state's bill and find out what is it they are going to submit of my information. How are they going to creep into my life, into my kitchen, my living room, whatever, based on me signing up for their class? What are they sending over there? Because remember, the school choice people say, "No, they're just going to give you the account and you just have to use the approved things and everything will be fine." Well, there has to be oversight somewhere. And if there isn't, I can promise you in about 5 minutes, voters on the left are going to be demanding it. So it's going to happen anyway. So the oversight is usually going to come on the back end with the vendors accepting the money, just like Medicare, Medicaid, and all these other things. No, the government's not coming to you necessarily when you sign. I mean, they ask you for certain pieces of information in order to be signed up for Medicare or Medicaid, but they're not asking you to justify every single little procedure or code. That's for the vendor. That's for the doctor, isn't it? So the doctor has to share with the government whatever the government asks about your health, because you are taking advantage of these funds through them. The vendor becomes their bitch, basically. And you have to then decide philosophically, do I want to participate in that? Do I want my child learning from people who so willingly signed up to be the government's bitch in exchange for money? And we can feel sorry for them all day long about, well, they would have gone out of business, blah, 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 blah. No offense, but maybe they should then. If you cannot figure out how to provide value to what is now a growing number, like rapidly exploding number of parents who want options, who want change, if you can't figure out how to at least keep your business stable in that environment and sell people on how you don't take those funds, how your prices are not going to go up because of compliance costs, how you are going to reflect their values. And, the old selling point for private schools back in the day was, yes, yes, it's more expensive, but but you're getting these intangibles. So if they can't do that, if they can't even educate their customer base on that, then maybe you need to go find somebody different, or better yet, do it yourself. Complete DIY. with primary sources books and your own figure it out. Just figure it out. You don't necessarily even need a curriculum. This is all presupposing you believe you need a curriculum. So that's, it's going to happen. It will happen. And then once it does, and so many people are using it. Remember, just like Obamacare and everybody was signing up and everything. And people said, well, when everybody's covered by insurance, it'll drive the cost down. It didn't have that effect, did it? It drove all the costs up for exactly the reasons I said. And what ended up happening was that the people using all the facilities like you have to wait forever for an appointment, but so you're also going to run into situations where you want to use the money and you're like, yeah, I want to use the money, but you can't get into the class. It's full. They can only hire so many teachers. They can only, produce so much. They're going to have to go to AI to service everybody. They have to go to AI or hire the same teachers who were in the public schools or coming out of the ed schools who suck, just to be able to take the money. So everybody goes like, "Oh, it's going to be great. I'm going to have all this free money." To buy what though? What are you going to buy? So in that way, they'll get into the homeschooling environment through the back door. They put their teachers in. The union will even start saying, hire our teachers. We'll do you a deal. And they will. Then the government, and depending on the state, will start putting in things like, accountability for title standards, DEI standards, CDC standards. And they can. There's nothing in law that prevents them from saying, you're taking tax dollars for your child's education. Your children need to have well visits and vaccines. And if one of the reasons you're homeschooling is to avoid that, hello. The other thing that is not prevented, there's nothing that's really going to protect you at the moment, is doing checks on your child's mental health. So if they can mandate well visits and vaccines, they can mandate psych evals. And just yesterday, I found an article and I shared it out into Twitter/X, whatever, about the new, and I'm going over, it's not a Distant Dispatch, the CDC's new booklet on mental health in schools and using the schools for that. An article about the hidden mental health problems of homeschoolers. They're hidden, you see, because they're the beyond the reach currently of the checks that are happening in public school and even in private schools, where they've got the teachers and the admins and all these people with their eyeballs surveilling your child and saying, oh, we think this child has mental illness. Now something needs to be done. But those poor homeschool kids, they're beyond the reach. When will they not be beyond the reach? Quiz question. As soon as those parents are taking tax dollars, they will not be beyond the reach. It is an engraved invitation to government to come into your life. Oh, you would like the money, would you? Oh, of course you would. Yes, I imagine that you do. So here are the forms you're going to need to fill out in quadruplicate. Take them to your doctor. Get them filled out. We need to make sure that your child is mentally healthy enough to do. And some of you might be watching this and saying, okay, Deb, I'm with you so far, but so I'll just not take the money. I just won't take the voucher. I just won't take the ESA. I won't set it up, whatever. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, that ought to be a given. Okay. But I'm sorry to tell you, I think you need to go a little farther than that. And so the rest of this was how to protect yourself. You need to go a little farther than just not taking the money, because what else characterizes these government programs is the way they eventually universalize themselves. In other words, we already have regulations in every state around homeschooling, with maybe two exceptions where you don't have to do anything, like Texas, when you don't have to do anything. Okay. But with school choice, even that's going to go away. But if you live in a state now where you already have to tell them you're homeschooling, you already have to keep a standardized test on file, or you already have to keep an attendance record just in case they call you in, or you have to submit documents proving you have a high school diploma so that you can be the teacher, you have to say who's in the school every year. If you already have these, as most states do, and some have even more than that, they start adding all this stuff. They become barriers to entry. It's like saying, I can own a gun in New York. Sure you can. After you spend thousands of dollars and jump to 17 hoops and wait forever and a day, and, then yeah, okay. Not exactly what it is to own a gun in Texas or North Carolina, but you're not literally disallowed. Well, the same thing is going to happen with homeschool. The way they're going to chip away at it is make it increasingly difficult, the barriers to entry for all homeschoolers, not just the ones taking the money, because they're not going to want to keep separate records. Do you really think they're going to give a separate record? That's going to be their excuse. We don't want to give a separate record in our bureaucracy. No, we want a huge bureaucracy that y'all pay for with tons of new jobs that will never go away. But we're not going to have records for the people doing it totally bespoke on their own without the money and people taking the money. They're not going to do that. That's going to be their excuse. Their excuse is going to be homeschoolers, period. Take the money, don't take the money. That's your business. And then the only reason not to take the money will be that the vendors you could legit spend it with are not vendors you even want anymore. Which, of course, is another risk that vendors that you like now will get corrupted, wake up one day and go, oh, shit, we're no longer the great and wonderful whatever that people came to rely on for decades as being a wonderful source of high quality curriculum. We're now just another version of the woke shit they're selling in the public schools. Because government has pushed us and pushed us and pushed us. And we grew over the last 2 or 3 years, and we hired a bunch of teachers, or we hired a bunch of writers, or we bought an AI system, or we did whatever we did. So take advantage of all these new customers. And now we're on the hook. And our business model is such that if we walk away from this money, we will go under. We will literally cease to exist altogether, which of course has some people in government and the union going, yes, that will be fun. The other thing is that your taxes are going to go up no matter what. You see, what I'm trying to do is get you to actually actively oppose school choice movements and to actively support any candidate who says, I want to pass something or I want to put into law permanent guardrails on so-called school choice to protect homeschooling, like real homeschooling, and to keep the government surveillance out of parenting, period. For all children, for all parents, even the parents in public school, but for shit sure, the parents are doing it themselves and not outsourcing their parenting. Because that's what homeschooling is doing the parenting yourself, not outsourcing it all. And the only people who should get your vote are the people who see it that way. And the people who are not going, I'm getting you school choice. Aren't you excited? Don't you love me? I'm getting you free money that you didn't even pay in the first place. No, it's just a tax credit. Well, if that's not a euphemism, it's not a tax credit is on my tax form. I check a box that says, I don't owe you this amount of money because I spent it on my kid's education. Bye. Whatever that amount is from my income, my money that was in my wallet. And then you want to take it from me? I'm going to say no because I educated my kid and we're all good. That's a tax credit. What they're calling a tax credit is actually the same thing they call those earned income tax credits. Money from people who earned it to people who didn't. It's not dependent on your income. It's not, it is dependent on your income. And if you didn't make enough income, they give it to you anyway from somebody else's pocket. That's not a tax credit. That's welfare. But they're calling it, the school choice movement even is going along with them calling it a tax credit. Their lies never cease. And so if you don't oppose this, vigorously oppose this, you are tacitly supporting the growth of government that is going to come into your house. One or the other, it's going to come into your house. Next thing you know, you're going to wake up one day and sign up, go register your kids for your homeschool for the next year. Or you'll get a letter in the mail saying, we know that you registered for the first time. Like in North Carolina, we do it one time. We don't have to do it again. You just have to tell them every year how many kids are in your homeschool this year, but you don't have to sign up again. But they have been known to send out letters saying, oh, there's a new thing. New little compliance thing that you have to do. Send us blah, 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 blah. That's going to happen. From now on, you need to have your wellness checks on file with us or on file in your file. Otherwise, there'll be a penalty of blah, 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 blah. And of course, then you have to wonder, is my doctor going to be reporting who came and didn't come for their wellness visit? Do you even have a doctor? Do you even go to well visits? Most homeschoolers I know don't. A lot of them are like, I'm not going. I don't believe in well visits. Doctors in medicine today don't keep your kids well. They treat sickness and they look for sickness. And half the times they miss real sicknesses, and they misdiagnose ones that don't exist. For the longest time, oh, your child is asthmatic. Here, inhale all these steroids that she totally didn't need because she didn't have asthma. But they made her worse for, like 7 years of her life. Yeah. So a lot of homeschoolers are homeschooling because they don't want to be forced into vaccines and well visits. There are like dozens of reasons people choose to homeschool their own kids and not hand them over to the government. Well, I submit to you that school choice ought to be added to the list of why you want to go without them. It's not like, oh, yay, I can go homeschool now. It's, I really have to, because what they're signaling is we, the government, think that we have the authority to use your tax money to come into your house. It is not the benefit everyone says it is. And it's really kind of sad when you hear people say, the money's going to follow the children. The money. You mean other people's money? It's going to follow the children into their house. And everybody's going, yay. Or they'll say, then don't take it. Corey DeAngelo says all the time, don't take it. Don't take the money. Well, I noticed, Corey, because that's always an answer to the question of what about homeschoolers? They're going to eventually regulate homeschool more than they are now. Well, don't take the money. Well, I noticed you didn't deny that it is an expansion of government. You didn't deny that you're okay with the socialist system that it represents. You don't deny that it is a compulsory socialist system. Your solution is don't take the money. I'm not on Medicaid. I'm still paying out the ass for other people to be on Medicaid. I'm not on Medicaid, but I still have to wait in line behind people who are to go to the doctor. I'm not on Medicaid, but the standard of care has declined because of all the people who get medical entitlements. Don't you think it's going to be the same with education? Why wouldn't it be? I have yet to see anybody come and say, no, 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 this is different because, and give me a reason. What's the reason? And all of that will drive taxes up. Why wouldn't it? First thing that's going to happen is the unions are going to come and cry, well, money is going to underfunded because they're sending the money to the private schools. They're sending it over to people who are homeschooling. School bond, which will pass because school bonds always pass. Your taxes go up. Or we need a property valuation because we don't have enough people are enrolled in the school. We don't have enough money for the per seat, blah, blah, blah. They reevaluate the properties. Suddenly, your property tax bill, there you, the homeschooler, are like, oh, that's all good. Yeah, suddenly you can't afford to live in your house. To homeschool there or, do anything there. You can't afford it. Your taxes just jumped up by a big percentage to keep all of this going when it shouldn't have been going through the third party of the government in the first damn place. And now what happens? You maybe have to sell your property. Who's going to be right in there to buy it for you? Could be BlackRock, could be just somebody else who wants to buy a bunch of properties. Who knows who it's going to be? But then where are you going to go live? Right? Now you have to move. Or you're just going to pay out the ass for that. And then maybe one of you has to go back to work and you can't homeschool anymore because now you need a double income. There are consequences. There's no such thing as free money. And instead of fighting, the same people who are so independent, they're saying, I'm going to go educate my kids myself, are saying, yeah, but don't you think it's a step in the right direction? It's like, wait a minute. So you're all about independence and doing it yourself and taking responsibility for raising your own kids, but you still want the entitlement. You still want the government handout. You still want your neighbors to be compelled to pay for it. Well, I need to pay for it. Then what you should be fighting for is to not have to do that and no more. You don't you cease to have any kind of credibility when you're okay taking, for example, $7,000 per child from other people's tax money. I don't pay $7,000 per kid from this address in taxes to my state or my county. I don't. So if my state adopted the $7,000 per kid, which is what a lot of these states are doing, that seems to be the magic number. Somebody someday will look back and tell us why it was the magic number. And I can almost guarantee you it was tied to like, what's the magic number to get people addicted and controlled? Okay. They did something. I promise you they did. And if I were to do that when it was, let's say, during COVID, I would have had $21,000 to spend on home educating my 3 kids. I honestly, I don't think I could spend that. Now that might be 1 year of tuition at a fancy private school, but not for homeschooling. You don't need that. So why would you like is taking that? And then now we have states already. I just saw it yesterday. States are already haggling. In one state, I think is it Oklahoma or one of those that just passed a bill deciding what will be acceptable to use ESA money on for education and what won't. And they're getting down to the nitty gritty, like you may or may not buy a second computer monitor, or you may or may not go on a trip, or you may or may not, sign up for this class, that class, the other. Well, then some of the stuff might seem ridiculous. You may or may not have a ping pong table, or what was one of them? Have a big screen, buy a big screen TV with it. Now, ironically, I can think of many, many reasons why I might want to have a ping pong table as part of my homeschool if I had room for it. I might want to spend disposable income on it and then, have my kids do things with the ping pong table that were educational. I could come up with reasons for that, why I think that would be legit. I can't do it for using other people's money to pay for it though. That would seem a little bit extra. And that's the problem. They're going to get in there and tell you what is and is not extra. And today it's a ping pong table. Tomorrow it's Montessori style cookware for your first grader, which is perfectly appropriate for educational purposes, but they might decide it's not. Just use the regular pots and pans. Who knows? They might get that nitty gritty. They might say, no, it's good enough to just use the online version of the blah, blah, blah. You don't need to buy the book. It's okay for you guys to not actually go to dance class. You can just take the online class with the AI. That rest is extra. And suddenly it'll be just like the quality of medical care you get from Medicaid, the VA, or even Medicare without supplemental out of your own pocket. So how's that going to be for fun? Your taxes get jacked up. You've got all kinds of regulations. You've got to go for well visits, get your kids shots that you didn't want to get in the first place. You got the money from the government, but the courses and shit that you're paying for with it went up in price. And the only way for you to afford good, passable quality for any of it is to pay more out of your own pocket. How's that going to be? I am confident in making the prediction that that is where we're going to head, unless people stand up and say no, no more. It's already done in so many states that school choice has passed, and so a lot of people are saying to me, "Well, where were you back when?" Blah, blah? Saying the same shit. Nobody listened. So I'm continuing to say it because at least you can fight now to try to rein it in as best you can. And things have been known to be repealed and undone. They have. Yeah, some of your neighbors will hate your guts if you refuse to support school choice, but it's not wrong to do the right thing. Now, how you can protect yourself while all of this is going on is do your level best to disengage as much as you possibly can with the government. Like I said, pick curriculum that has either explicitly committed to not taking public funds or that you know uh, you would be okay switching from if they did. So have a backup or two or three. I wouldn't even oppose. In fact, I might suggest calling the curriculum manufacturers and developers, whatever that you use that you love, and saying, "Hi, I just have a question for you for what it's worth. Are you planning to take these funds? Because I hope that you're not. And here's why. They may not be hearing from people like you. Get a group of people together who agree with you and call these outlets, call these vendors and say, "We stand by you. We will continue to buy your products, but only if you don't play footsie with the government. You start playing footsie with the government, we're not going to be long for your customer list." Same with your doctor. If you have a primary care doctor, ask them what their policy is going to be if the government comes calling and says, "We want to insist that people who are homeschooling get these shots. So if like you might not go for well visits, but what if you have to go see the doctor because your kid has something wrong and you need medication or you need something. And you walk in and this is what already happens to me and my kids. Oh, I see you're behind on your shots. You didn't get vaccinated for my favorite one is now they're telling my teenage kids that they need to get RSV vaccinations. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Or they need to get boosters of their varicella, their chicken pox. Or, whoops, and then, of course, the Gardasil garbage, which we skipped. And there's not a time that my kids go to the doctor for a legit reason, like something's wrong that they don't hear about. Well, you're behind in your vaccines. And thankfully, in my state still, I'm able to say, "Mhm, yeah, so moving on, what should we do about the blah, blah, blah problem for which we showed up?" They don't like it, but they can't not write a prescription for antibiotics or whatever it is that we're there for, like a referral to physical therapy or something because my daughter doesn't have a Gardasil shot. They can't deny us care, but because we're not in the school and we're not tied to, we don't, they're not duty bound by regulation to say, I can't treat you. I know that you're homeschooled, but I will be in violation of regulations on me as a doctor if I don't at least tell the doctor or tell the government that you refuse the shot. And I don't know what's going to happen then. They may not, whatever, your insurance may not cover this. You might get in trouble. They might, DSS might knock on your door. There could be any number of reasons. And that is more likely to happen to a homeschooling family. We already know that that happens to homeschooling families who refuse shots in some states, that they get a visit from DSS. And you might think, well, that's fine. I don't do well visits, but there may come a day you need to go to urgent care or the emergency room, or you need to go to the doctor because something is actually wrong and your kid has like a massive ear infection or who the heck knows what's going on and they broke a bone and you need care and they will get you. So, short of wrapping your children in bubble wrap and making sure nothing ever happens to them, finding opposing this and supporting groups that support medical freedom, that support education liberty is what you need to do to protect yourself. And then, like I said, interview your doctors, interview your vendors. If you go for any kind of extracurricular activities, open your mouth and use it every chance you get to defend individual liberty and to suss out who are the people in my community who are aligned with this. And if all else fails, start your own. So, for example, like start your own little co-op, start your own little micro school, start your own little thing that will commit from now until whenever in some kind of document or whatever that we're going to band together. We're going to work together to provide whatever we need and not take government funds. And that could include nurses, doctors, etc. Like I said, if you need trauma care, you're going to end up at the hospital. But you might be able to find somebody who's a liberty-minded doctor or nurse who won't take any of this government money. No Obamacare stuff, no Medicaid, no Medicare. And when they're completely independent in that way, the government thankfully still cannot force them to do things. They can't. They still have the ability to write prescriptions. They still have the ability to practice medicine and get a license. You're not obligated in the United States of America to provide services or provide information and surveillance to the government if you are not taking their funds, if you're not taking public funds. That they cannot do. So find out who those people are and start creating that parallel universe for yourself as soon as you possibly can, because it's coming. They're coming in to the homeschool world at a rapid clip, and I don't think people see it coming. And the unfortunate thing is those who say, "Well, I'll just go sign up and then I'll quit when it gets bad. I'll take the money now, but then if things get really bad, I'll stop taking it." Like I said, you're setting yourself up to go try to find resources on the fly. And there's your kid going, but I like going to the such and such gymnastics center and I want my music lessons. Blah, 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 blah. And you're going to be right back in the same situation that parents find themselves in who have kids in middle school and above in public school who want to yank their kids out. And now you're causing trauma to your child because you want to disengage from the government after having engaged with the government and thinking, well, I'll just keep my eye on it. It'll be okay. Morally, ethically, don't engage. You shouldn't engage it because it's wrong. What they're doing is wrong. It's not choice. It's a euphemism. It's more choice for the government about what you do in your house. That's literally what it is. It's projection 101, and I don't know what else to say about it other than that, but you've got to start going rogue and off the grid with the services you use in relation to your children and your homeschooling in order to protect yourself from coming under their surveillance and their gaze. That should probably protect you. Um, and hopefully more and more people will start speaking out and this will be curtailed. But I don't see any movement in the Republican Party. They are absolutely oblivious to this. Either they don't know or they don't care or they're all in on it. They're all in on it. They're invested in it. They're going to make money off of it through these public private partnerships. We know Betsy DeVos is making bank. And we know that a lot of these other people are using it as an election issue. Like me, I'll get you school choice. And so many people are like, yes, I'm going to vote for the Republican because school choice. Nope. If they genuinely cared about small government and fiscal responsibility, they would not only oppose government run school choice measures, they would be standing there making a case, a solid case for free market solutions, truly free market solutions. And I'm not hearing that from any of them. Zero. Zero. So that's what I had to say about that. I wish I had better news, but unfortunately, now with the CDC coming in and saying they're going to use schools for checking up on mental health, and now that I'm starting to see articles floating around, I'll go through one tonight about the hidden mental health crisis in homeschooling, hidden behind the closed doors of the parent's home, hidden where we mandatory reporters can't see it. We need government ways to get into their homes and check up on their mental health. We need to check up on these homeschoolers. And with John Oliver's, little show, it's starting to seep out. You can see it sneaking in their rhetoric. There was just a news story like she said she was homeschooling, but listen to the horrors of what was actually going on behind closed doors. That was just out last night. I didn't even read it. I refused to read it. I was like, I don't even want to read this obviously positioned piece designed to further that narrative. This is what they do. Slow drip, 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 drip. So anyway. All right. So that's what I've got for you today. Please remember that it is day 5 of the 12 days of Christmas. Those of you watching this on the replay, I'm sorry you missed it. I mean, the replay way after Christmas. And on day 5, we have free upgrade to the Rhetorician membership. So if you are a logician, go use the code. Don't forget to use the code. Don't just check upgrade. Use the code to upgrade and you will have you'll be locked in to your current price, but you'll be at the upgraded level and that's free and you'll get the benefits that come with the higher thing, which includes, requesting shows, which includes private access to me, which includes a 20% discount, which includes tutoring discounts, includes a lot more stuff, and the affiliate program. So then you can turn right around, take your affiliate code, recruit some of your friends, and get paid for anyone who signs up. So you can do that like today, but only today until midnight. And then tomorrow there'll be another deal. So I just wanted to put that out there. It's a pretty good one. That's about it. Thanks for watching. And I hope those of you, again, who are able to be there live tonight because you're watching this Monday, the 17th of December, 2023. We'll come to the Dissident Dispatch show tonight. Those of you watching on the replay, go back and look for it in the archives. And it's going to be about the CDC's new mental health in schools program or, guide for schools of how to do it, how to make sure that you're taking care of kids' mental health in the public schools. Yeah. If only we all learned history about the involvement of government in the definition of mental health and the so-called protection of it, promotion of it, I should say. All right, you guys, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you later.